Hey guys, welcome to the WalterFootball.com After Dark Show for October 6th, 2023. We're going to do our Week 5 DFS picks on DraftKings. We're going to do some Superflex picks. We're also going to open up some Rainmaker packs at the end, which is always going to be exciting to see how we can turn $40 into $4. So that's always great. Joined once again by Kenny Ortiz, the creator of thecapIsFake.com. Kenny, how are you?
Oh, bro, I'm feeling great. I was actually out of town this week, back home, and I actually slept a full night when I was out of town because I don't have an infant with me. My poor wife was taking care of the child by herself, but back home, ready to not sleep tonight.
Nice. Wait, back home as in Philly?
No, back home as in like back to Orlando. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay, I see. Well, that is always nice. I feel like I haven't gotten more than 4 hours of sleep in what I think is like forever. Actually, like when I went out to Vegas, I think the highlight of my trip was like being able to sleep more than 5 hours without anything. Like that was like the best. Like forget hanging out by the pool and going to casinos and like meeting up with other sports bettors and stuff like that. I just wanted to sleep, and it was a fun time. So I definitely hear you on that. Yeah, we're going to talk about DraftKings. As I said, before we get to it, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit the link in the description for the merch store. All that would mean a lot to us. If you want to help support the show, word of mouth would be the best way, just to get the word out there about the show if you like it. So, all right, Kenny, let's dig into this. It's kind of weird to do this on the Thursday instead of Wednesday. We already had the Thursday night game happen. Congrats to those who backed the Bears along with me. But yeah, let's get into the quarterbacks. So we have Mahomes at the top, then Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, etc. Are you playing any of these top guys? And by the way, let me before we get into that, I think I like this game that we played last time, where we guessed the highest owned, projected to be the highest owned player at each position. Before we get into the quarterbacks, you want to take a guess as to who the projected highest owned quarterback was going to be this week?
My guesstimate might be. I'm gonna guess. Maybe CJ Stroud. What's his ownership going to be?
He is projected for only 2.6% ownership.
Really, at that price point, after the numbers he's had, that's very surprising to me.
Yeah, I thought it'd be higher. The projected highest owned quarterback this week is Jalen Hurts at 14%. Followed by, I'll give you the top three: Tua Tagovailoa at 12.5%. Makes sense against that Giants defense, and then Patrick Mahomes at 12%. So the people are going after the highest owned quarterbacks.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to have a lot of both of those guys too. So I'm going to be in with the chalkiness. Jalen Hurts. I don't think I'm going to own a lot of Jalen Hurts, if any, to be honest. Obviously I'm an Eagles fan. I love Jalen Hurts. I'm going to be rooting for him. But yeah, I don't know that I love him at that price point compared to the other guys that are on the slate.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Hurts in this matchup either. He just hasn't looked right. Like look at these. Like he hasn't hit above 27. Now, granted, like 27 is a good number, but you'd expect someone if you're paying $8,800 in Superflex, like you're expecting like, okay, maybe he's going to have the occasional 30, 35 pointer, and he hasn't had that yet. And we just saw what Justin Fields did to Washington. Jalen Hurts' 27 looks like far less impressive than that, and like that, this was overtime as well. So. Yeah, I agree with you. I'm not playing Hurts at all. I think of all the top guys I would consider is Patrick Mahomes. The top four. I love this matchup against Minnesota. And I like the fact that Mahomes is coming off one of the worst games he's had in his career. He had 2 interceptions, easily could have had 2 more. He did run well at the end to help his score. He got up to 15 fantasy points. But like as a passer, he just looked terrible. And like someone like Mahomes, who always has a chip on his shoulder, always wants to work hard, I think he's gonna try to vindicate himself and play well. And it again, like it's a much easier matchup.
Yeah, and it was on national TV,
right?
Which I think those kinds of things. Mahomes, I think sometimes we make much of those things in a way that's more than it ought to be. Like the whole Kirk Cousins on prime time, I think is more of that is made than probably is really valuable. But Mahomes strikes me as the kind of guy, personality wise, losing to the Jets or not playing well against the Jets, although they won the game, not playing well against the Jets on national TV, I think is the kind of thing that will motivate a guy like Mahomes.
Yeah, I think so too. I think, yeah, being national TV, you have the Taylor Swift thing, like all that stuff, like adds up. And not to bring that up, but
I mean, I know you're a big Swiftie fan. I know.
I don't know if I could name any of her songs. Like, so if someone you always say, like, someone pointed a gun and forced you to bet $1. If someone pointed a gun at me and forced me to name a song, I'd be like, oh man, I'm dead. I just can't. I don't know if I could do it. So of the 8K guys or more, I'm most likely to get to Mahomes. And honestly, I'm not getting to any of the other guys. Jackson, the Steeler defense is going to be roaring this week after being humiliated against Houston. And then Tagovailoa, I like the matchup. The problem there is that this is almost certainly going to be a blowout. So I don't know if he's going to be throwing very much in the second half.
Yeah, one of the things a note I made to myself was I don't know that I love any one QB a bunch this week or any stacks that I really love significantly this week, like I have in previous weeks. And so I think I'm going to end up having a spread out. I'm going to have a lot of diversity of quarterbacks and stacks, I think, more than usual. Most weeks I really kind of target just a few. And, I play significant, I like to play the 150 lineup, one contest. I put 150 different lineups into that one contest. Usually all my 150 lineups are 5 quarterbacks, three to 5 quarterbacks across all 150 lineups. I foresee this week, I could see myself having 7 or 8 different quarterbacks across my 150 lineups this week. Mahomes definitely will be, I'll get to him some. I'll get to Tua a little bit here, and there's some cheaper guys we'll talk about in a minute here that I'll have, but I think generally I'm going to be more spread out.
And it's pretty cool that you play the 150. I do like single entry or like 3 max, so it's cool to have that sort of balance. Real quick, Aaron asking, I kept DJ Moore on my bench. Oh man, but I have Ayuk and Adams starting. Will they do better than him? Well, I mean, Moore had like a career game. He had 230 and 3 touchdowns. But I mean, Ayuk and Adams maybe combined they'll do better. I do like them though this week. I think you'll do well with them. But no, Moore is definitely going to outscore them.
Yeah. DJ Moore tonight had the second highest scoring fantasy game on a Thursday night game since 1997, or the second highest ever, and the highest since 1997. Corey Dillon in 1997. I should have made that a trivia question. I asked you who you thought it might have been. Corey Dillon, the last guy, is the highest scoring Thursday night game ever. Yeah, DJ Moore. No one's going to outscore DJ Moore this week, but that doesn't mean you can't win your lineup.
That's true. Yeah, no, that's for sure. Actually, it's funny because in our league, the one we're in together, we've been in together since like 05 or 06. I looked to see who had more, and the guy who had more went against the guy who had Justin Fields. By the way, it was Jacob. So it's funny, like their scores are like 51-45 right now, and like everyone else is like 0-0. It's pretty hilarious. Yeah. All right. What about the mid-tier quarterbacks? You said you have a bunch of guys there. We start with Richardson and going down. By the way, I love Richardson this week. I love Richardson every week, unless he's going to play like the 85 Bears or something. He scored 30 fantasy points on 11 completions against the Rams. He got banged up during that game, and he wasn't running as much, but it didn't look that serious. So I feel like he's going to run a lot, and he's playing the Titans, who have one of the worst secondaries in the NFL. So do you like Richardson? And who else do you like in the mid range?
Yeah, I like Richardson at that price point. He just was a little expensive for me. I kind of want to be a little bit cheaper than that. And so I like CJ Stroud at 6,000 against the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta has been very inconsistent. And CJ Stroud has been excellent. He's actually my main quarterback in our league together, our season-long league. I got CJ Stroud as my quarterback because I had Aaron Rodgers, RIP, of my 11th round pick. But so CJ Stroud is who I'm rolling with, and I'm going to have quite a bit of him this week. I like him quite a bit. The other guy that I like, this makes me a little bit nauseous. I can't believe I'm going to say this out loud. But I like Zach Wilson. I like Zach Wilson at 52. Oh, sorry, he's a cheap guy. Sorry, you were talking mid-tier guys. Sorry, I jumped down. But
that's okay. We can talk about him.
I like him 5,200. Okay, unique. There's a unique thing here. I like to compare the Superflex pricing to the standard slate pricing. And usually for quarterbacks, the difference is anywhere from $700 to $900. That's the typical difference. And the Superflex pricing almost always lags behind the standard a little bit. Zach Wilson is 5,200 on Superflex, 4,900 on the standard. Also only a $300 gap, which shows me we're actually getting value. He probably really should be priced on the Superflex side at like 5,600 or 5,700. And so you're getting some automatic value, I think, on expected points, kind of dollar per points there. And Zach Wilson played really well for most of that game. And so I expect him to come out and do the same. Again, I'm going to have a very spread out in my quarterbacks. I wouldn't go crazy playing a bunch of Zach Wilson. If I was in single entry contest, I probably would not have a lot of that. We probably wouldn't pick Zach Wilson as a quarterback. But if you're someone that's going to have several lineups, I think some Zach Wilson will be helpful at that price point.
Well, it's funny that you said, it's going to make you sick and everything. And you're like, oh, if we're playing single entry, you're not going to have him. I'm playing one lineup, and he's my quarterback. He's one of my two quarterbacks. One thing I wanted to see before I put Zach Wilson in my lineup was his ownership, because now, like, if a higher owned quarterback, you're looking at Mahomes, et cetera. Like I said, he's the third highest owned projected quarterback. Like, at that point, I don't think it matters, because like Mahomes has a great chance to go off,
Right.
especially in a matchup like that. But like if you're rostering a highly owned Zach Wilson, that is a huge mistake. Like you should never do that in DFS. So like I wanted to see his ownership. He's only projected to be 1.8% owned. So that was really appealing to me. The price is appealing. It just shows you how mispriced he is. Look who's above him, Jake Browning, who's not even going to play. So like, why is he cheaper than Jake Browning? Makes no sense. This is the easiest matchup he's going to have of the year, and I talked about his matchups like prior to this one. So in the 4 games he's played against the Bills, who are, I believe, third defensively. He's played against the Cowboys, who are second. He's played against the Patriots, who are 11th. And then he played against the Chiefs, who are 6th. The Patriots were his easiest matchup. And that was like Belichick, who just has his number. Like, he hasn't played a defense below 11th yet this year. And we saw what happened with Justin Fields. Justin Fields, in his first 3 weeks, he played against 3 teams in the top 15 of defense. And then he played against the Broncos, who were dead last. And tonight he played against the Redskins, who were 23rd. So, like, it's a huge disparity, as we've seen. The past 2 weeks, Justin Fields has been great. Like, I feel like Zach Wilson is going to take a big leap in production. And you're right. I mean, he played at least 2 quarters. He played a great game. Now, like, he did struggle at other times, but this is the easiest matchup, as I said. Denver is so bad defensively. They're worse in pressure rate, the worst team in the NFL getting pressure on the quarterback. And what really sold me on Zach Wilson, like, initially I was like, I don't know if I'm going to play him. But 2 guys I love, and we'll get to these guys later. 2 guys I love this week are Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. And I had, at first I only had Breece Hall in my lineup, and I was like, oh man, I really love Wilson this week. So I put him in the lineup. So I'm like, well, I already have Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. Why not just play Zach Wilson? They just stack them together. And that's how we got to it.
Funny, you may Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson are both on my list of guys that get to as well. So
Nice.
One other guy that I'm going to have a little bit of in that mid-tier pricing that I like a little bit is Matthew Stafford at 6,300. The Eagles have just been incredibly inconsistent against the secondary. I actually saw a stat this week about breaking down by quarter. They are the worst team against the pass in the last 10 minutes of games. Now, that's in part because they've been up in some games. But that's not with the Redskins. I mean, they made Sam Howell look like Joe Montana out there in the last 10, 11 minutes of the game in overtime. We saw Mac Jones do that early in the week. We saw Kirk Cousins do that in the last 10 minutes. So even when they're up a little bit, they've been playing very soft. And I don't know I don't know if it's scheme. I don't know if it's conditioning. I don't know what the issue is. I don't want to speculate, but I fully expect the Eagles to win this game against the Rams, but I think it's going to be close. And I think Stafford could put up significant points, particularly in the last few minutes of the game. And so if you have Stafford in lineups and he looks like he's not gone crazy yet, midway through the third quarter, don't worry. The Eagles will give up some points late in the game.
Can I ask you one thing about Stafford, because I liked him this week until I heard this quote. Let me ask you if your opinion changes on this. This is from Diana Marie Rossini. I think she's still on ESPN. I'm not sure, but she tweeted out Matthew Stafford will be back at walkthrough/practices this week. However, the team is expected to take it light, knowing he's dealing with a hip injury. Now Stafford in that last game against the Colts, if you were just watching the score, you may have noticed, or maybe you watched the game, I don't know, but like if you're just following the score, you may have noticed the Rams were up 23-0, and then the Colts came back all the way, and then the Rams won in overtime. And I was like, I just saw the score live. I wanted to see, and I watch every game, so I would like watch it later. Stafford got hurt in the third quarter. He suffered a hip injury. He was like limping around. And then he kind of like willed his way to win in overtime. So do you have any concern with his injury and also that quote?
Was he listed on the injury report this week? I feel like I didn't see him on the report.
I'll look right now. But like I wouldn't trust injury reports because the Bengals have been listing Joe Burrow as full like this entire season. So like I can't really trust that. Stafford was designated as full practice on Wednesday, but again, you can't trust that.
I definitely want to keep an eye on that and kind of get a feel what's going on by Saturday. If he's a full participant in practice, I probably won't be as concerned. Even if he's not 100%, I still would expect him to score some points, particularly late in the game against the Eagles. Maybe I'm just a jaded Eagles fan right now.
Can I throw one name at you? What about Josh Dobbs? So forget week one. This is his first start. He barely knew any of the players. Like he knew, like he said, he didn't like actually know the names of the players he's starting to. So just throw that game out. Ever since then, he scored 25, 17, and 23. He's only $6,000. He's running a lot. Like his carries are up every single week. It's like 3 to 6 to 12. If that holds up, it's gonna be 24 carries this week. Probably not. But still, like, he is playing a lot better. Cincinnati has a terrible defense. They can't defend the pass at all. Their secondary picks have not panned out. I just think it's a really good matchup for Josh Dobbs. And if you're gonna stack him, it's a super cheap stack because you have Marquise Brown, who's I think is like 4,900. You have Michael Wilson, the second receiver is like 3,500. Zach Ertz is super cheap. You can throw James Conner in there as a cheap running back. I like the cheap stack, and I like Dobbs. I want to check his ownership real fast. Dobbs, it was 6.2% ownership, which is like not low, but still, I think it is.
Yeah, that feels a little high.
You think so? I think it's kind of like the mid tier. Like the guy Stafford is right below him at 6.2% as well. So. And Kirk Cousins is next, 7.7%. But I don't think it's that bad. But anyway, what are your thoughts on Dobbs?
I like Dobbs. I'm actually I'm going to play several Cardinals receivers, and spoiler alert, Zach Ertz is also on my radar. So I probably will play those guys naked, as they say. Dobbs is fine. I think great. I think I like CJ Stroud, who's also 6,000 a lot this week. And I like Zach Wilson.
Stroud is he's 6,000 in the regular contest, but he's 7K in Superflex.
Oh, I missed that. Okay, I thought he was that's pretty significant difference, 7,000 to 6,000. You're right. Okay, so I'll have to rethink that. And I like Wilson as well. So I'll have to rethink now that I had the wrong number written down for Stroud. 6,000 for Dobbs, I think is good. In particular, if you're going to play, you mentioned Michael Wilson being the second receiver. I actually think he's their number one receiver at this point. I think he's that. Oh, wow. I think he's much better than Brown, and I think we're going to see that. And I actually been trying to trade for him in our league, but to no avail.
Real fast in our league, I have to relay this. Our friend or I say our friend Bodyburner. I think you met him once. Bodyburner is he's a really good friend of mine. He's been trying to trade like crazy in our league, and like he doesn't get responses. And then like he said that he had a deal done with someone in our league. I won't mention who. He had a deal done in our league, and and then the guy mailed him back. He's like, wait, I want to see how my guys practice first. And he's like, are you kidding me? Like, we agreed to this deal, and now you're just backing out because of like nothing that happened. You're like, oh, I want to see what happens in practice. Like he's been trying desperately to trade because he's 0-4. He just had like really bad luck. I think he was the third highest scorer in each of the past 2 weeks, and he's just lost. So like he has a good team, but he can't do a trade at all because like half the guys don't respond, and half the guys like are trying to kind of like jip him, So it's like so frustrating. So I'm not surprised that you can't trade.
Yeah, it's the worst. It's the worst trading league of all the leagues I've been in my life.
I haven't done a trade in that league in decades, or like in a decade, I think.
Yeah, I actually usually have given up. But every now and then you see a player that's like maybe like Michael Wilson, like, yeah, no one really knows who he is, right? But then like these guys, anyway.
Yeah, you'll be like, all right, I'll give you, my fourth running back for Michael Wilson, and then you get like, no, give me Justin Jefferson for Michael Wilson. It's like, those are the kinds of counter offers you get in our league.
And then I'm in another league. It's like there's like 3 trades a week. It's a 14 team league. There's like 3 trades a week. You're like, these guys just all they want to do is trade nonstop.
I don't understand it, but anyway, do we have any other quarterbacks? I'm out.
No, that's it.
Okay, all right, let's go to receiver because they pair the best with the quarterbacks. We have 3 guys above 8K. We have Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, and Cooper Kupp, who may not play. We'll see. There's a chance he's going to play. So are you getting to any of these top guys? Or first of all, before we do that, who do you think's the top owned guy this week for receivers?
Okay, top owned guy for receiver. Man, I might guess Tyreek Hill, actually.
Tyreek Hill is number 2 at 19.5%. You want to take another shot?
I'm gonna guess. Maybe someone like maybe Garrett Wilson ends up getting owned a lot, or a Tank Dell. I think those would be the guys I might expect to be more owned than ordinary.
So Garrett Wilson is number 8 projected owned, and Tank Dell, he is let's see, he is number 11.
Oh, that's really Tank Dell was I think he was the 3rd highest owned receiver on the slate last week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that like it makes sense that he's going to be lesser owned a little bit this week because he didn't do much last week. It's kind of weird how that happens, but anyway, the number 1 projected owned receiver this week is Jamar Chase at 26.1%.
That's a very high percentage, and I will not be owning much Jamar Chase.
I will not be playing him in my 1 to 3 lineups at all. So
yeah, I guess that maybe it makes sense that people want to. I don't really understand the logic or what's the thinking there. At the end of the day, Joe Burrow does not look. 2 things. 1, their offensive line just is still not good. This team is, I can't figure it. They draft guys, they add free agents. They can't figure out the offensive line for like the last 15 years. The offensive line is still not, it doesn't matter what they do. It's crazy. Second, Joe Burrow's not himself. I got a chance to watch some of him play. Just like, he's not the same. He's not extending plays. He's not throwing in. He's not the same guy. He's 80% of himself, 75% of himself, which is still really good. 75% of Joe Burrow is certainly better than me. But like he's a great player, but he's not fully himself. And the offensive line is a train wreck. So until I see it happen, I can't put money. I mean, Jamar Chase hasn't scored a touchdown so far this season.
Yeah, like where's the upside? Like if Joe Burrow were healthy, I mean, like give me Jamar Chase to 7,700. But Joe Burrow, I'd say 75% is like generous. Like all he's doing is throwing checkdowns. We mentioned Jake Browning earlier. Like, would the Bengals look any different right now if they had started Jake Browning these 4 games? Like, I feel like they'd be 1-3, and their offense would be limited because Jake Browning would throw checkdowns. Like, that's all Burrow's doing. And Chase's best game, 29 points. But like, I get it. I get that T. Higgins is out. Like, he's going to throw to Chase a little bit more. But I think that affects like other guys more. He's going to throw to Irv Smith Jr. if he plays. He's going to throw to Tyler Boyd. With Higgins out. Like I'm sure they have their other receivers going to step up. Like they're not like all of Higgins' targets are not going to go to Chase automatically. And I think people are making that mistake. And I think it would be a mistake to play Chase at 7,700,
particularly with that ownership.
Yep.
I mean, he would have to totally go off for you if you don't have Chase and he scores 3 touchdowns. Okay, your probability of you winning is very low. But like he's going to have to do that in order for you to. So if he scores, if he has an average game where 70 catches, 70 yards. I mean, 70 catches, 70 catches.
Pretty
No.
good.
Yeah, like 70 yards. Even if he scores a touchdown, like 70 yards and a touchdown, well, you can overcome that without having him if a bunch of people have him. So I see no upside in getting Chase at that price point.
Yeah, I mean, like his ceiling game was 29, right? AJ Brown, who's $100 more, his ceiling game is 41. Like you have to look at that. Amon-Ra St. Brown, his ceiling game is 22 so far. And I don't think he was even 100% in that game. And so like, yeah, at that ownership, I would rather play Brown or St. Brown or whatever. So I asked you before, are you playing any of the top guys?
Yeah, the main top guys I'm looking at, I'm going to be cheap elsewhere a lot this week. So I'm going to get some Justin Jefferson. I just can't not have some Justin Jefferson in my lineup. He's 9,200 on the Superflex slate. I love having him in the game. I know he's playing the Chiefs. They're a little bit of a better defense than what he's faced up to this point. But I expect that game to be high scoring. The Vikings defense is just so bad right now in so many ways. They might be worse. Last year they were historically bad, but they may not be that bad, but they're still not good. And so if the Vikings have to score a lot of points to keep up with the Chiefs, then I would imagine Jefferson's going to get there. And then I like AJ Brown a lot at 7,800. He's 8,000 on the regular slate, so 7,800 on this slate, little value. I love AJ Brown against the Rams here. AJ Brown is just a man, and Hurts has looked a little better each week in getting the ball to AJ Brown. If they haven't seen the touchdown he scored, where he basically just ran through the defense. I mean, broke 3 tackles and ran by 3 other guys. Just it was a thing of beauty. You're just like, this is why you pay the guy. This is why you go trade for the guy. And if you're a Titans fan watching that, you got to just be nauseous because it was awesome. And I expect AJ Brown to be awesome. So I think a lot of AJ Brown, a lot of Justin Jefferson this week. And then for some correlation, Puka Nacua. I can never pronounce. Am I saying his name right? Nacua? I don't know.
Yeah, you got
it. Puka. I love the correlation. I'm a big fan of that in my lineups. And so if you're going to have AJ Brown, having Nacua on the other side, if you can afford it, you're going to have to go cheap, really cheap elsewhere. But I really love having both of those guys in the lineup at the same time. I know Cooper Kupp is expected to be back. I don't expect Nacua to be out. Nacua it's not been fluky at all. This guy's awesome. He's a great route runner. He's actually very similar to Cooper Kupp in skill set. And so I fully expect Nacua to still be on the field. And I wonder if his ownership will actually be down a little bit this week compared to what it has been in the past, if people are concerned, because Kupp's coming back. Last week, Nacua was owned in he was only owned in like less than 7% of the lineups on the Superflex slate. So I'm curious what his projection is for this coming week.
Well, his projected is 7% ownership again.
Oh.
And like he keeps going up in price. Like, I mean, look, he started 3,000, which is hilarious. Yeah. Like 49, 61, 66, and now he's 75. So you're actually paying a significant price now for the first time. I was going to ask you about Cooper Kupp. Like, I think it's a concern. Like, what if they put Kupp back in his own old spot in the slot and Puka plays elsewhere? Like maybe he takes Van Jefferson's spot, or maybe who knows? Maybe Kupp takes Van Jefferson's spot. I don't know what Sean McVay's going to do. If like Puka plays his normal position, I think that you could definitely play him at 7,500. I just don't know. Like we haven't seen it. Plus, there's a chance that Cooper Kupp's not going to be 100%. Maybe he doesn't play all the snaps. Maybe he doesn't even play at all. We don't know yet. So I mean, if Cooper Kupp's out, like I'm definitely going to try to jam Puka into my lineup.
Yeah, until we see it, it's hard to know for sure. I guess I'm just I'm convinced the Rams are going to score some points against the Eagles in this lineup in this game, and no matter what happens, Nacua has been so good. I can't imagine McVay, who's generally a smart coach. I can't imagine he would not get the ball to this guy. I guess it's definitely possible. And because they have some overlap in skill set, I would imagine that maybe Kupp will actually cut into Nakua's, his share of the catches or targets. Now we haven't seen Nacua play much on the outside where Van Jefferson has played, or Robert Woods has played in the past. So maybe we'll see that, or maybe we'll see Kupp. Again, as you said, it'll be hard to know, but I'm willing to roll with it this week. And I've got Cup in our season-long league. I'm not sure if I'm going to play him. I've got some decent receivers I feel good with, so I'm probably going to let him sit, and maybe I'll regret that.
Yeah, I've Cup in one league. It's actually the league I'm doing worse than because I drafted him, obviously. Like I drafted him in the first round. This is before his injury. So yeah, I had no idea that was gonna happen, obviously. And I've struggled because of it. Like I'm 1-3 in that league, but I am gonna play Cup because I don't really have much of an alternative. So I'm just gonna go swing for the fences and like try to rebound. But I think if you're in a position where you don't have to play him, if you have like good alternative options, then don't play him. The one guy at the top we haven't mentioned is Tyreek Hill. I like him a lot this week. Now he's coming off that 10-point performance that could, I would say it would deter some people, but as we said, like he's gonna be highly owned. The thing for me here though is like he's playing against the Giants, who are just terrible defensively. The Giants are one of the worst tackling teams in the NFL, and like not being able to tackle Tyreek Hill is just like it makes me think that like he's gonna go off again. So do you have any interest in him? I know you said you like Jefferson, so maybe that's the reason why you're not getting the Hill.
Yeah, I will get the Hill some. Jefferson and AJ Brown will be my most owned expensive receivers. And yeah, but I will definitely have some Tyreek Hill. And I've got a correlation bet for you, a correlation combo. How about this? If you're going to have Tyreek Hill, which I love against the Giants, it'll be great at 8,800. And if we expect the Miami Dolphins to score a lot of points against that Giants defense, by the way, the New York Giants are the worst team in football. I said this before the Bears game tonight. They were the worst team in football, and I love it. It's fantastic. Makes my heart filled with joy to watch this team be so bad. They're so bad, dude. But I fully expect them to have to throw a lot. And so how about this for a correlation? If you're going to have expensive guys, you got to have some cheap guys. So how about Wan'Dale Robinson at $3,000 for the New York Giants? So I'm gonna run those two back together. So in every lineup, I'm gonna have Tyreek Hill. I'm gonna have Robinson, and for some correlation there. So that's my suggestion. If you have Tyreek Hill, pair him with Robinson, and I think that'll pay off in some lineups.
Does it scare you at all that Wan'Dale Robinson is projected to be let me rephrase that. Wan'Dale Robinson is projected to be the 9th highest owned player on the slate.
See, I'm not unique. I thought I was being creative and unique, right? But clearly, lots of people are thinking the exact same thing I'm thinking. Yeah. They're thinking Robinson's going to get all. It should scare me a little bit, which is why I'm not going to do a ton of it. I'm not going to have a ton of Hill. I'm going to have some Hill and pair it with Robinson. But no, I'm okay with that because it's only $3,000. And I really expect Robinson to get a lot of the targets there.
I have to wonder if everyone's going to be playing Robinson. And that projected ownership, by the way, is 17%. And
it's very high.
And I think it's going to be even higher because it's so appealing. It's like 3K. Let me just plug that in. Man, I think that you could gain a ton of leverage if you could find someone who's about 3,300 or less who could outscore him. And like Rondale Moore comes to mind. I know he didn't do anything last week, but he had 16 fantasy points in week 3. So there's at least some potential. You have Nelson Aguilar, he had 17 points in week 2. He hasn't done anything since really. 7.9 in week 3 is not bad. Just like go dumpster diving and like try to find someone like Paris Campbell at 8.4, 4.5. Like Wan'Dale Robinson is like, I don't know if he's 100% coming off that injury. I know that like there is some appeal there because of what we saw Monday night. He had 6 targets, 5 then 6 targets. So like he's becoming a bigger part of the offense. And like there's a chance that maybe he sees 8 targets in this game. Maybe they're way behind. They, as you said, they throw a lot and he gets like 12, 13 DK points, and there is no one who beats that. But like I said, I think that if you can find someone who can outscore him, you're going to have a really good chance to take down a lot of money because everyone's going to be playing this guy.
I'm looking in that range right now. Zacchaeus for the Eagles is 3,200. I don't know that I feel confident in him. Jay Mingo for Carolina at 3,300. Allen Robinson is 3,400 for Pittsburgh. Like, I don't know that I love any of those guys. You mentioned a few guys, obviously. Calvin
Calvin
Austin
Austin,
at
Calvin Austin.
3,500 is maybe the guy that you could potentially now. You're talking $500 more though, so
Right.
from 3,000 to 3,500 is pretty significant.
Mm-hmm.
Calvin Austin, I actually mentioned as one of my honorable mention cheap guys that I'll definitely have some of. When you're playing expensive guys, and I like to play the expensive stacks, you need to fill in with cheap guys. Calvin Austin is a decent option. I guess I don't, I think your advice is sound. I guess I don't see anyone else in that 3,000 to 3,200 range that I feel as confident in. Maybe Pierce for Indy is 3,400, but that's again, 3,400 is still a jump up. Yeah, I guess while I ordinarily would agree with you, I think in this case I'm willing to go with Robinson.
What about this Trent Irwin fellow with Higgins out? He had some significant games last year. He'll be on the field doing stuff.
I have a rule. I don't play white receivers unless they've had at least 100 catches in a previous season, aka Cooper Kupp.
Sure. It's probably a good rule to have. But again, like you're just looking for leverage here. I just don't know. Again, like there may not be anyone that may be the answer, and maybe the answer is just to play Wan'Dale Robinson because again, like if he goes off 13, 14 fantasy points and you don't have that, then you're just behind the eight ball, really. But again, if you can find someone who outscores him at 3,500 or less, then you're going to be really well off. So I would urge everyone to kind of look into that. Alec Pierce is a second round pick. Like he hasn't done anything, but who knows? Maybe he goes off. Tennessee secondary is terrible. Like he could potentially have a decent game. Again, white receiver who hasn't had 100 catches, but maybe you just make an exception here. Anyway, so we skipped the mid tier. We went like super expensive.
Sorry.
No, I mean, I think you're right to say that because it was good correlation with that Dolphins Giants. I like a lot of the mid tier guys. Like, who are some of your favorites?
I don't really have a lot of mid tier guys. Funny enough, I've got two guys that I'll have. Some Garrett Wilson we mentioned earlier. If I'm playing some, any Zach Wilson lineups, I'm probably going to have Garrett Wilson in. I'm not going to have a ton of those lineups, but I definitely want to have some Garrett Wilson. He's 5,900. Garrett Wilson is such a great player, and I'm really sad that Aaron Rodgers is injured because I would have loved to have seen him with a great quarterback, and maybe Zach Wilson will turn into something great. Who knows? But he's a really great player. Reminds me of just like Larry Fitzgerald or David Boston in Arizona, just like or Calvin Johnson all those years. I guess he had Matthew Stafford for a couple of years, but like just so often like some great receivers that play with bad bad quarterbacks. I'm just like, I sure hope that's not Garrett Wilson's career. Anyway, so he's one of the mid-tier guys I like. Tank Dell at 4,800 I like a little bit. But I don't really, the guys I like are either expensive or I got some really cheap guys that I haven't mentioned yet, but I don't really love a lot of the mid-tier guys. And there's some decent options, but I think I'm kind of feeling that kind of stars and scrubs kind of feel this week.
Some guys I like, Michael Pittman Jr. He went off in the first 3 weeks. He had 23, 13, then 16 with not 8 and 9 catches. Now last week he didn't do anything, which is kind of puzzling, I think, especially considering that the Colts threw a lot in the second half. It was just Richardson was going to his tight ends a lot. Now Tennessee secondary, I mentioned this before. Tennessee secondary is really bad, especially against the deep pass. So I could see Richardson just throwing a couple bombs to Pittman, and I could see him going off. I like Pittman a lot this week. You mentioned Garrett Wilson and Tank Dell. Those are two guys I also have. You're not going to like this next guy because you already talked bad about him, but Marquise Brown in a stack with Josh Dobbs, I think is pretty good. I mean, like if you want to make the case, I don't know if you saying Michael Wilson's the number one receiver, maybe that's more positive about Wilson, which I could definitely get behind. But in Brown's past 3 games, 17, 17, 16 fantasy points. Cincinnati secondary is really bad. They drafted a lot of players to replace guys who left, like Jesse Bates, etc. And they haven't panned out, and they just can't cover anyone. They've gotten torched. Ryan Tannehill looked great against them last week. Remember, like Tutu Atwell in that Monday night game, he had a touchdown call back. Like he could have had a monster fantasy game. So like the Bengals can't cover anyone, and Marquise Brown's only 4,900. That's the number one receiver, or arguably maybe number 2, but still, like, he's a starting receiver on an offense that should do well this week at 4,900. That's really appealing to me.
Marquise Brown, he's a good player. I'm not dogging him. I don't mean to dog him at all.
Yeah.
And the Cardinals are a much better team than we expected. I think the Cardinals are a great lesson. I think sometimes coming into the season, sometimes people playing fantasy are more confident in what they think teams are than they ought to be. It's kind of like, I mean, I felt like everyone was saying on Twitter, like, oh, the Cardinals are definitely going to be terrible. They're going to be awful. They're tanking because they cut Colt McCoy. I mean, that was like legit Twitter buzz going into the season. And I was like, well, they're probably going to be bad, but I don't know, maybe not. And like they've actually been a reasonably decent offense. Like not stellar, but Dobbs has been decent. And so the only reason I'm pivoting away from Brown is because I really like Michael Wilson, and he's only 3,700. Just using using the eyeball test. I'm not a scout, but I think Michael Wilson is a better player. I think he's like noticeably a better player. I think Michael Wilson, we will go at the end of the season, we'll be like, wow, that guy was good. Was he a 3rd round pick in the draft this year?
I think so, yeah.
I can't remember what draft. And again, I don't watch college football, and I know you and Charlie, you guys are awesome with that. I don't really watch college football much, so I don't know these guys until they come into the league. I'm watching the Cardinals games and thinking this guy's a legit player. He's a really good route runner. He's small. He's a small player, but in today's NFL, when defensive backs can't even look at you without getting a flag, that works. So at 3,700, I'm going to have he will be my most owned wide receiver this week. I ran my first, I do my optimizations early in the week. And Wilson ended up in my 30% of my lineups, 50 of my 150 lineups. So he's far and away my most owned player, not just my most owned wide receiver.
Yeah, I like him a lot, and especially in Josh Dobbs stacks. But yeah, he was so he got a lot of buzz from some people on Twitter, like YouTube. I watch a lot of YouTube videos when I'm walking the dogs or like driving around, and I like a bunch of guys were touting this guy, and I'm like,
did you just say you watch YouTube videos while you're driving? Is that what you just said?
Yeah, yes. Don't tell anyone. No, obviously I don't watch it. Like I'm just like watching the video. It reminds me, I think like Family Guy did that once. But anyway, no, I haven't like just playing the audio. But like a bunch of towels were like they were all over this guy. And I remember I'm like, I would like him too, but like just the quarterback situation is like so bad. And this is back when Colt McCoy was the projected quarterback, but obviously Josh Dobbs has been so much better than anyone expected. So that's kind of like boosted Michael Wilson, maybe more than he should have been this year. And yeah, he finally had a breakout game last week, and I think he could do that again. I like him a lot at 3,700. I think he's super cheap and like really good at that price. Not low enough to be something, an alternative for Wan'Dale Robinson, but still someone I think that you should probably have in your lineup. So I kind of want to see what his projected ownership is real quickly. He's projected to be 4.6% owned.
That's great.
It's not bad, yeah. So anyone else you like receiver?
We've mentioned most of the guys. I'm going to have quite a bit of Patrick Mahomes, as we talked about earlier. Not a huge number, but I'm going to have several lineups with him. Most of those I'm going to stack with Travis Kelce, as we'll get to in a minute. But if I'm not stacking him with Kelce, any lineup where I have Mahomes and I don't have Kelce, I'm going to have at least one of the other receivers, and I'm going to just split it 50-50. So I'm going to have half of them with Rashee Rice at 3,600 and half of them with Sky Moore at 4,400. Frankly, I don't really like either one of these guys. I don't think either one of them are great NFL players, but with Mahomes, you never know. Mahomes can break the slate anytime, and one of those guys could score. If I'm playing in a season-long league, I don't want to play these guys in my lineups. If I'm playing in a single entry DFS contest, I don't want to play these guys in a lineup because I just don't have that much confidence. But if you're playing multiple lineups and you just kind of fill, you want to get some diversity, having a little bit of those guys, I think will be helpful.
So I love Rashee Rice this week, and here's maybe I can sell you on liking him more. So this game against the Jets, he has 6.2 fantasy points. Everyone in the Chiefs passing offense did poorly in this game because Mahomes struggled. So I just throw this game out. So this game, week 3, he had 5 catches, 7 targets, 59 yards. So he had 10.9 DK points, which is like, looking at that, he was 3,300. It's pretty good for a 3,300 player. Like, you're going to be happy with Wan'Dale Robinson if he gets 10.9 at 3,000, right? So, but think about it this way: like, in that game, Rashee Rice was tackled at the 1 yard line twice. Like, he could have easily gotten, instead of 5 catches for 59, he could have gotten 5 catches for 61 and 2 touchdowns. That would have taken him to 23.1 fantasy points. If he had that in his last Sunday slate, I think everyone would be playing him at 3,600. In fact, he would not even be 3,600. He would be like 40 something. He'd be like 42, right, 43. So I think you're getting a discount of Rashee Rice. He's playing a great offense. He's playing against a terrible defense. I love him this week. I think that he and Michael Wilson are going to be like staples in my lineup. I don't want anything. I really don't want Wan'Dale Robinson with that ownership. So I'm going to try to stick with Rashee Rice and Michael Wilson, and hope they outscore Wan'Dale Robinson by a significant margin.
Yeah, you're right. He tackled the one. Now I've got a Rashee Rice elite card, nice, and in my Rainmakers, and was relying on him, and was not excited about being tackled the 1 yard line twice in one game. Yeah, I guess I'm watching him play, and I just don't think any of these guys are good. Like, and I think the Chiefs got away with it last year, because ultimately Travis Kelce is a receiver. Like, bottom line, he's just a receiver. Call him tight end if you want, but yeah, these guys are not good. They got away with it last year with Juju. I think it's showing more and more this year, and so my guess is that Rice or Moore will not do much, but I want to have him in some lineups in case I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you want to stack Mahomes with other guys than Kelce. Any other receivers? I'm done with these guys.
No, that's it.
All right, let's go to running back. So I'm not going to forget this time. Who do you think is the highest projected owned running back this week?
Oh, it's got to be Devon Achane, isn't it?
He's number 2 at 19.1% ownership.
That's interesting. Maybe I would guess maybe Bijan.
He's number 3 at 19%.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know. Maybe Brace Hall.
Breece Hall is he's 8%.
And then my other guess would be Kyron Williams, but no, he's probably not. He's not. He won't be that much.
He's in the top 10 at least.
Yeah. No, it's funny. I'm looking at these. I don't know who the top guy would be.
It is Joe Mixon at 23.4%, 6,400. Joe Mixon, 6,400 in the main slate. I don't know what he is here. Let's see. He is 6,300 here. Are you have any interest in Mixon at that high ownership?
No, 0. He wasn't on my radar before that. I have him in our league and our season long, so I'm going to have to play him. But no, I want no part of Joe Mixon at that price point and with that ownership.
He was on my radar because Arizona is bad against the run. They're like really bad against the run. I think they're 29th. But then I saw the ownership and I'm like, no thanks. Yeah. that Bengal offense is so limited by Burrow. If Burrow were 100%, like Mixon would have a chance at like 2 or 3 touchdowns in this game. But like, it's going to be like a 2017 grinder in this game. I could go either way. So yeah, no interest. I think he can get to like 16, 17 fantasy points, but like, I'd rather have other guys than him.
Yeah, I'm surprised these people are all over the Bengals here.
I love them.
Yeah. How often are the projections wrong? They're usually pretty close, right?
Yeah, this is awesome. Most projections it's now stochastic. So yeah, we have that link in the description. I highly recommend signing up for them. I've been using stochastic since 2019, so it's been more than 4 years. It was the summer of 2019 when I started, and like I think they have the most accurate projection for ownership out there that I've seen. Like obviously they're not going to be right all the time. No one is, but like they're pretty on the money with a lot of their calls.
Nice. Yeah, I'm not going to have many Bengals, and definitely not going to have much of any Mixon or Jamar Chase.
Yeah, me neither. I'm good. In fact, I think if we're not discussing defense here because Superflex you don't need to do that nonsense. But in regular DFS, when I see Joe Burrow, oh no, not Joe Burrow, but Joe Mixon and Jamar Chase getting that much ownership, I'm like, man, I want to play Arizona defense. It's like that is
Mm.
insane leverage just to go against that. Like,
Yeah.
if Arizona's defense hits, like no, first of all, no one's gonna have Arizona defense because everyone's playing those guys, and like second,
Yep.
those guys probably don't go off. So like that gives you a huge edge.
Agreed.
Okay,
Agreed.
as far as the top running backs
Yep.
here, there are three guys over 7K. We have Saquon Barkley, who I don't know if he's going to play, but he's been limited in practice. Then Bijan Robinson, Derrick Henry. Are you getting to any of these guys?
Yeah, not Saquon, because even if he's healthy, first game back with that offense, I don't know. I don't want to spend that money. Derrick Henry, he's finally looking like himself again, but not sure that I love Derrick Henry. Bijan, I will get to some. He's not in my top, but I have him as one of my 3 honorable mentions. And so I'm gonna like Bijan. Dude, this guy is so good. Like, this guy is so good. The offense still is inconsistent. The quarterback is terrible. They're still not giving Bijan all of the red zone carries. So all of these things work against him. And yet he still scored, 21 DK points in 3 of 4 games, even with those things against him. He is everything that the scouts said he was. He was awesome. And I'm, as an Eagles fan, I'm glad the Eagles got Jalen Carter at the 9th pick. But if they had ended up with Bijan Robinson, I would have been perfectly happy with that. This guy is a man. With that said, I will own him some this week, but he's not amongst my top guys.
Yeah, I love Bijan this week. If you look at the results, like, so ignore this Detroit game. I don't know what Arthur Smith is doing here. Like 10 carries. Like, I know they fell behind, but it wasn't like that bad. Like, I think that's just terrible coaching. But against Jacksonville, he had 21 DK points. Jacksonville and Detroit have 2 top 10 run defenses. Houston is bottom 5. Like, I feel like Bijan could really go off this week. Like, I think this week he could really like have this breakout party. Now he's had like 137 total yards in week 4. He had 172 here in week 2. I think he could go over 200 net yards in week 5. And also maybe he runs in a touchdown, as you said, like he wasn't getting goal line carries. First of all, like that could change, you never know. And second, like he could just break one and go the distance against this terrible Houston run defense. We've seen Derrick Henry over the years just abuse this team. Now Bijan's not going to get them twice per year, but he's going to have an opportunity to do what Derrick Henry has done to them for so long. And I think that, Atlanta being at home, like they're the favorites, I think they're going to win this game. I think Bijan's going to go nuts. So he is, as I said, I do 1 to 3 lineups. Bijan is in my main lineup. I don't want to go away from him.
Nice. He's a great player, and so I'm never going to argue with anyone having Bijan Robinson in their lineup for sure.
Yeah. All right. So we go to the 6K or maybe even below if you don't like anyone in the 6K. I like someone in the 6K that you absolutely despise. Let's just get this out of the way. I like David Montgomery. He 37 DK points in week 4. I know it's a bad Green Bay run defense, but Carolina's run defense is even worse. Like Detroit is a 9.5 point favorite in this game. They're going to be running the ball a lot. And we've seen that, like, this was a blowout, and Dan Campbell was still feeding Montgomery the ball. Like, I feel like, I know you don't like him, but I think he's just in a great spot. The Detroit Lions offensive line is elite. And as I said before, Carolina can't stop the run. I think Montgomery is going to go have a great game this week, as he did last week. So I'm going to play him. I know you're not, but I just had to get this out of the way.
Walter, I'm a new man.
Nice.
I'm a new man. David Montgomery's in my top 3 going to be my top 3 own running back this week.
Awesome.
My top 3 guys, their first names all begin with D. Okay, funny enough.
Okay.
David Montgomery, when I say I never like him, I just think he's a mediocre player. He's not a great player. But clearly there's something about David Montgomery that coaches like. I don't know. Maybe he's like the really nice, polite man in the locker room. Maybe he shines their shoes. I have no idea why. Both in Chicago and Detroit, the coaches trust this guy. And there's something to be said for there are guys that lack talent, but like if the coaches trust them and they're going to feed him the ball, I mean, then you got to give that guy some props. And David Montgomery is clearly that kind of guy, not as talented. I'm going to have a ton of David Montgomery this week at 6,500. and in the Superflex and 6,600 in the standard slate. He in standard he might end up being my number one owned running back. In Superflex, I think he's going to end up being my third most owned running back. Side note, a lot of the things I said in the offseason have kind of come to fruition. I told people I was nervous that Jahmyr Gibbs would not be used by this coaching staff. He was going in the second and third round of fantasy drafts. And I was saying, guys, I think he's a 5th or 6th round pick. And I felt like, but now I'm trying to trade for him in the leagues I'm in because I think he's a great buy low candidate because I can foresee in the second half of the season that Gibbs goes off. I said multiple people, I don't think he's a good 3rd round pick because I don't trust the coaching staff to use him the way they should. There's been a lot of changes, right? We got new tight end, new receiver, new running backs. But I think Gibbs could be a second half of the year type of league winner type player. And so I'd be willing to trade for him. So anyone in the season long, I think that's good advice. But in the short term, David Montgomery is certainly the man.
Well, good luck for trading him for him in our league. It's not going to happen. But I don't even know who has him, to be honest. But I don't know. Maybe you'll run into the rare owner who wants to trade him. I'm with you there on Gibbs. Like, I feel like he's definitely a good buy low guy, and like, Montgomery goes down, suddenly he's like a great option. So I'm always for owning running backs, like good backup running backs who actually play. And I'm looking at his real quick on Rainmakers. His elite card is 225. His rookie debut is 550 because you get that for the next year, but still. I think 225, maybe that's not that good of a price. Actually, Dave Montgomery is only like 280 or something like that. So like maybe he's a little overvalued in Rainmakers, but if you can get him in your season long for sure, I like that move. So I named a guy in the mid range. Do you want to name someone here?
Yeah, I'll go both of my guys because they're similarly priced. Devon Achane, is it Achane or A-Chain? I don't know.
So
Devon A-Chain.
It was A-Chain, and then he came out and he's like, guys, my name's A-Chan. Like 4chan, A-Chan. And like I was wondering, like, people were calling you A-Chain the whole time, like, and you didn't say anything like until now. Like why'd you wait this long? So
I've got a really good friend of mine who calls me Kenny Ortiz. He's called me Kenny Ortiz for I don't know how many years. I'm just like, I just give up. Anyway.
Wait, have you corrected him or
like 4 years ago?
Okay. No, so it'd be one thing if you never corrected him, and like one day you just were like, "My name's not Ortiz, it's Ortiz." It's like, why did you say something earlier?
I don't know. I've given up on trying to come. Like, okay, whatever. Call me whatever you want. I like Devon Achane. I also like Raheem Mostert too. They're both similarly priced. Achane 6,000, Mostert 6,100. And so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have some lineups that are identical and just swap out Dolphins running backs. And maybe do that with like 5 lineups. Maybe have basically 5 lineups where everything else is the same and they just separate. So end up with 10 lineups total. I think I'm going to do that. And then the other guy that I love is DeAndre Swift, 5,900. I think I expect the Eagles to try to feed him and feature him more. We finally saw them doing some screen passes and some swing passes to running back, something that has been completely absent from the Eagles playbook under Nick Sirianni. They're finally starting to do that. And so you saw this past week, DeAndre Swift had 4 targets, which is more than he had in any other week. I expect them to do that again. Well, at least I hope to do that again. And they were not all just in overtime. I know sometimes overtime games can inflate stats, obviously. Those were all in regulation. So I expect that to be the case. The Rams have been very inconsistent against short passing game. And so I think DeAndre Swift at 5,900 could be a fantastic purchase for this week. Purchase, that was a weird word to use. I don't know. Play.
Well, you are spending money on these guys, so it makes sense. Yeah, I like Swift. I like Achane, and Mostert's the most appealing to me because I said before the Giants are the worst tackling team in the NFL, which like automatically gravitates you toward Achane because like look at this 54-30, like he can go the distance anytime he touches the ball. He's just so explosive. Now like the one downside with him is that he's not big enough to handle a full workload, but you may not need him to. So he looks fantastic, but that ownership is insane. Like he's projected to be 19% owned. That is, as said before, the second highest running back. So he's projected to be 90% owned. Mostert's projected to be 5% owned. So like if you get this right, again, like this is another pivot point where you can make in a huge field. Now, if you're playing like in a lineup in a contest with like 3,000 people, it's like single entry, it doesn't matter. But like in the main slate, that can make all the difference in the world. So I would rather play Mostert, even though he doesn't have the same upside. He can still have a huge game against this bad Giants defense that again can't tackle whatsoever.
Mostert's been great. Side note, you notice whenever he gets a carry, it's like the commentators feel they need to talk about how he was a track star. Like I feel like every game, it's like mentioned 4 times. Like just like if you got DK points for every time you were mentioned as a track star, he'd be the number 1 running back every year.
Yeah, he'd be like 10,200 on the slate. Yeah.
Like, can we get over the narratives, guys? Okay. Anyway, sorry, I get annoyed easily.
Yeah, I want to mention a couple guys in the 5Ks. James Conner, another guy you don't like very much. So I like this matchup a lot. Cincinnati is terrible at everything defensively. They can't stop the run. You just saw what Derrick Henry did last week. Obviously, James Conner's not Derrick Henry, but like Derrick Henry had been struggling heading into that game, and then he just had his best game. I think James Conner could have that same sort of really good game, especially if Arizona goes up. Like they could just run the ball a lot. And I don't mind pairing him with Josh Dobbs either, because he's a good pass catcher out of the backfield. But my favorite play, I'm not going to be playing Connor because I like this guy more. Breece Hall at 5,300. The coaches came out a couple of days ago and said that they're going to lift the restrictions on him and he's going to get the full workload. So that's music to my ears in this matchup against Denver. We just saw Khalil Herbert go off against the Broncos after doing nothing for 3 weeks. Denver's defense is so bad. I just think Breece Hall could have a monster game. Now this I think this is a meaningful game for Hall too, for a couple of reasons. One, he tore his ACL at Denver last year, so like this is kind of like a vindication thing, a narrative. I don't always like to play narratives, but like I feel like he's going to have some extra juice in this game. Second, he had a long touchdown run against Denver last year before he got hurt. It was like a quarter before he got hurt. He had like an 80-yard touchdown run, and Denver has just not been good against the run for the past couple of years. Like they've been really good against the pass before the season, but they've just struggled against the run, and like they've allowed big running plays a lot. I think Breece Hall, if the coaches weren't lying about his restrictions being gone, he could have a monster game. And that's what I was saying before. Like I was getting to Hall a lot, I was getting to Wilson a lot, and I was like, might as well throw Zach Wilson into that stack, right? So, I love Breece Hall at 5,300.
He was one of my honorable mentions. So, Achane, Swift, and Montgomery in my top 3. But Bijan Robinson, Breece Hall were 2 of my honorable mention guys. And so, yeah, I like him a lot. He's actually looked good in his plays up to this point. As you said, they've limited his workload, but he's looked sharp. I didn't expect much coming into the year because I don't like drafting guys coming off ACL. And so I stayed away from guys like him and Javonte Williams. But Breece Hall has looked good. And so, he's definitely my honorable mentions against Denver. My other 2 honorable mentions for this week is in that game. And so if you're going to play Breece Hall, I like playing this for the correlation. Jaleel McLaughlin. Is it McLaughlin or McLaughlin? I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, I picked him up in our league.
Yeah, so he was my number 1 waiver ad, but you got him in our league ahead of me. And so which is why I hate waiver wires. I want Fab in all my leagues anyway. But I wouldn't play him a bunch, but Samaje Perine is clearly not good, and Javonte Williams is going to be out, and so I think this is a great play at $5,000 to get the guy who's probably going to be the lead back in a game where I think some correlation would be helpful. So I like Breece Hall with Jaleel McLaughlin, whatever. Doesn't matter. 5,000, lock him in.
Yeah, I like him too, as long as Williams is out. I saw Javonte Williams practice. I thought he was going to be out, and then I was kind of confused that he practiced. Not sure what that's about, but yeah, if Javonte Williams is out, I definitely like McLaughlin, who the Jets have a run funnel defense. Like they're really good against the pass. But as we saw Sunday night, like Pacheco had that big run against them, like McLaughlin could have the same sort of production. You said I think you said you had 2 honorable mentions. Is
Yep,
there
I got
anyone?
one other. The man, the myth, the legend. He is great, Mr. Alvin Kamara at
Yeah.
6,200 in the Superflex, only 6,300 in the main slate. He looks, I've heard some people on Twitter say he didn't look the same toward the end of last year. I don't know what those guys are watching. I watched him play. He looked awesome at the end of last year. The team is not as good, certainly, but he looks great. He looked great this past week. He only had, I think, 11 carries or 12 carries, whatever it was. But at 6,200 against the Patriots, I'm glad to take Alvin Kamara as a guy here. I don't know what his ownership projection is going to be, but I can't imagine it's going to be much. My guess is it's kind of in the mid range. I would imagine a lot of people are still not jumping back on board yet. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it'll skyrocket and I'll rethink my expectations. But I really like Kamara as a good honorable mention.
Alvin Kamara is projected to be the 4th highest owned running back at 17.4%.
Wow. Okay, I'm very surprised by that. But I keep thinking that I'm creative and unique and thinking differently, but I guess not so much.
Well, I think this is why, and I talked about how like it's so useful to look at Stochastic and their ownership projections, because I'm with you at certain points. I'm like, oh yeah, this is gonna be a good play. Like, Wan'Dale Robinson, like 3,000. Like, yeah, he got 6 targets. Like, maybe he'll get 8. And then I see that ownership. I'm like, oh man, everyone had the same idea. So let's try to go somewhere else. And it's like so cool to like look at the ownership projections and like look at the 1 to 5% owned guys. And like sometimes I'll scroll through them and I'm like, wait, that guy's only projected to be 2% owned. Let me reevaluate and like maybe try to bump him up in my rankings and try to play him. So that's something I like to do too. So
it's a bummer.
Well, I mean, he can still like do well. He's 6,200. Yeah. Like, he had 14 targets, which is insane. Part of the reason why is because Derek Carr is injured. He couldn't get the ball downfield at all, so he's just dumping the ball off a lot. His targets are going to go down when Carr gets healthier, but I don't think Carr is 2 weeks after the sprain, AC joint sprain. Like, I don't think he's going to be quite there yet. So I think we're going to have 1 or 2 more weeks of this high target share, and then it's going to go down. But if the Saints offense is better, then he's just going to get more touchdown opportunities. Right. So, I'm with you there on Kamara. I just like the other guys a little bit more, but I didn't get to them. Any other running backs?
No, that's it.
Okay, so we transition to tight end. We have this question. Should I start Jake Ferguson or Dallas Goedert? I would start Dallas Goedert. First of all, Dallas Goedert is just better. Second, Jake Ferguson plays against the 49ers, and the 49ers are elite against tight ends. So don't play Jake Ferguson this week.
I mean, do you have other options?
Well, Dallas Goedert has done nothing this year. Let's get to him. I actually like him this week. It's 4,400. So a couple of reasons. One, the Rams are pretty weak over the middle of the field. And we saw that last week. Like, they had big trouble against the Colts tight ends. Colin Granson and Mo Alley Cox both score touchdowns. Second, we've seen some like rumblings here, some disappointment from Dallas Goedert. This could be like a squeaky wheel gets the grease situation where he's just targeted more in this game. So I think this is a really good buy low opportunity on Goedert. This is the cheapest he's been all year. He started off 5K, then 4.9, 4.8, 4.7. Now he's dropped $300 to 4,400. I think it's a great opportunity to get in on him. I like, as I said before, with tight ends, or I've said this like over the weeks, I either like to go super high or super low. I don't like this mid tier, but this is one exception, actually one of 2 exceptions this week. I don't mind Dallas Goedert, but I am going to go elsewhere. But like I said, I actually think he's a decent option this week.
Do you know Dallas Goedert is my second most owned player in my Rainmakers card set? Nice. I have 3 core, 1 rare, and 1 Dallas Goedert elite, and those are my I'm a little annoyed by that. So that not an exciting. The only player I own more than that is Jaylen Warren. He's my most owned. I own 6 Jaylen Warren, so that's not been fantastic either. Anyway,
I own more Khalil Herberts than anyone. I've opened up like 4 legendary packs, and like 2 of them have been Khalil Herbert.
Excellent. So yeah, that's not fun. But anyway, I don't like the exception. I'm with you. I either want to pay up or I want to go cheap. And I think I've made exceptions over the season so far and regretted it every time. And so, so I want to pay up. In my initial run of my first 150 lineups I ran, 50 of them I paid up for Travis Kelce. So a third of my lineups I paid up to get 7,800 for Travis Kelce, and I'm just glad to do it, particularly in those lineups where I've got Mahomes. Most of them I'm pairing them with Kelce, but I'm also going to play Kelce without Mahomes. I just think he's great. And there are a few lineups where I actually have him in as my flex rather than just I have him as my flex rather than, not just as tight end. So, he's basically a wide receiver, right? I mean, in terms of the target share and what he commands. And so I have him a lot, but I'm going to go cheap. I've got two cheap tight ends that I really, really like because of their cost. First one is Jonnu Smith versus Houston. He's only $3,000 in the Superflex, 2,900 in standard. So I'm going to have a ton of him just because he's just like, whatever, who cares? Like, you're just throwing a dart. I'm kind of like, and then the other guy that I like him more in standard slate than I do Superflex, but that's Zach Ertz. He's 4,000 in the Superflex. He's only 3,500 in the standard slate, which is very unusual for a tight end to be that. It just shows me he was way more owned in Superflex last week than in standard. So he's gonna be my most owned on the standard slate this week. He'll be my second or third most probably of the cheap tight ends in Superflex, but I really like him. And then the other guy I'll have a handful is Tyler Higbee. He's 4,300 in the Superflex. Not a ton of Tyler Higbee, but if I'm going to have some Matthew Stafford, I'm going to want to pair him. I'll pair him most of the time with Puka, but I'll pair him a little bit with Higbee here and there. So most of the time I'm going to pay up for Kelce, or I'm going to go cheap, and Jonnu's my main target. What do you think of those guys?
Well, I had Jonnu in my showdown lineup, the Falcons Jaguars showdown lineup, and I think I may have won that showdown lineup. It was I played the main one, but I'm talking about the single entry, which was I think it was like 5K to first or 10K to first. I forget. I finished 7th or 8th in that contest, and I had Drake London. And Drake London, remember, I don't know if you watched that game, but yeah. Drake London appeared to catch a touchdown, but then they said he was out of bounds, like he barely was out of bounds. If he scored that touchdown, I think I would have gotten first place, or maybe definitely top 3. And I bring that up because I had Jonnu Smith in my lineup. He was super low owned. He was only 2K. And I was like, I like this guy. Like he's gotten more production than Kyle Pitts, and he's a lot cheaper. So I just played him, and that allowed me to get to, in addition, I had Christian Kirk, a captain. I think I had both quarterbacks. I'm not sure. And then I had, Drake London, and then some other guy, but I also had, Bijan, and then I had Jonnu Smith. So I'm on board with Jonnu Smith. Just getting him as a cheap option here. As I said before, if you don't spend up, just go all the way down. Don't be in the middle of tight ends because they're pretty limited in what they can do. Like I'd rather spend my money on receivers who can be way more productive. But yeah, I like Jonnu Smith. I like Kelce for sure. And the other guy you can spend up for is TJ Hawkinson. Who had a monster game week 2 against the Eagles. Now he had a bad game against Carolina here. But Carolina has good linebackers, and they're generally good against tight ends if those linebackers are healthy. But the Chiefs have injuries at linebacker right now, and we saw them struggle to defend linebackers on the Jets. I think both of Zach Wilson's touchdowns went to tight ends. I know one was to Uzama. I'm not sure if Conklin caught the other one, but they had issues defending tight ends in that game, and I think that could happen again, especially if the Vikings are playing from behind, which we assume, and they're throwing a lot. You mentioned Jefferson, liking him for that reason. I think you could put Hawkins in there too, and he's 1,100 cheaper than Kelce. Obviously, you'd rather have Kelce if they're the same price, but like Hawkinson is at 1,100 cheaper. Could allow you to get to other options, and you're still spending up a tight end, which again I like to do, or go dumpster diving. You mentioned the guys. You also mentioned all the other guys I like. Tyler Higbee against that Eagles defense that struggles against tight ends, and then also Zach Ertz. I mentioned liking Josh Dobbs. Like you can stack Josh Dobbs with one of those two receivers I mentioned, and also Zach Ertz. So Zach Ertz dropped the touchdown, which is like so rare to see. last week. Like, so like this 11.3 could have easily been 17.5 or 6, whatever. And like that, he would be much higher owned if that were the case. So there's something to keep in mind.
Yep. I have one other tight end, which is a ridiculous play, but I wonder if he's the fact that he really shouldn't be a tight end. Okay, he shouldn't be allowed to be a tight end because he's not really a tight end. But that's Mr. Taysom Hill at 4,200. I wonder, like, he gets the random wildcat options. They've given him in the 10. They've given him 3 different like quarterback draw options this year inside the 10. So clearly the Saints, when they're inside the 10, he's a legitimate option. I wonder if, like, with Derek Carr's injury, will they just let him come in? Like, if he comes in and he throws one pass for a touchdown, like some gimmick play, then he's like he'll end up as like the number 1 tight end or the top 3 tight end, right? Like, it's like, and so I actually don't have him in any of my initial lineups, but I wonder if I want to like try to squeeze him in a little bit here and there, just to sort of like as kind of like my own like middle finger to like the tight end position.
I don't hate it. I ideally I wish he'd be a little bit cheaper than 4,200. Like, I feel like pricing him around Higbee and Goddard, it's like kind of hard to get to him. But I mean, yeah, he could definitely go off. Like, he can score 2 rushing touchdowns just randomly, and it is funny that he's a tight end. Because like it is so bizarre because like he doesn't really play tight end. So
he never lines up a tight. He hasn't lined up a tight end once this year, I don't think. I mean, he's a running back / gimmicky quarterback / special teams player. I don't understand why he's able to tight end. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I don't either. I want to mention one last guy. I don't have him in lineups, but I thought that he should get some consideration. Is Irv Smith Jr. I mentioned it before. He was hurt. He got hurt week 2, so he hasn't really done much this year. He hasn't had a chance, but he's healthy now. And if everyone is going to Jamar Chase and Joe Mixon, why not Irv Smith? Because if Higgins is out, that means Joe Burrow is going to have to dump the ball elsewhere. So I feel like he's going to throw a few more times to Irv Smith Jr. than he would have otherwise. I could see like Irv Smith Jr. getting like 7 targets and maybe a touchdown or something. Again, I'm not going to play this guy, but I think he should be considered just because of the Higgins injury.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, it makes sense particularly if you're someone that's you're looking to kind of be looking for a leverage play.
Yeah. So no more tight ends, I assume.
That's it.
I forgot to ask who you think is the highest owned tight end.
I'm gonna guess that it's Hawkinson. Actually,
it is not Hawkinson. Hawkinson is projected for only 7% ownership. This tight end is projected for 21.5% ownership.
Oh, maybe it's Zach Ertz then.
Not Zach Ertz. It's Zach Ertz is projected for 10.9% ownership.
Oh, is Kelsey going to be that much chalk?
It's Travis Kelce, 21.5.
Wow.
Yeah, that's another reason to get the Hawkinson. You save 1,100. You get more leverage that way. Easier matchup.
So I told you that I had Kelsey in 50 of my initial 150 lineups. Again, this is me thinking, okay, people are not going to pay up that much. I'm going to be unique. So this is the 3rd or 4th time in this podcast where I've thought I was being creative and unique and different, and I found out I'm not.
It's funny. Now these projections could change as news breaks. So like again, like I would definitely recommend signing up there. But yeah. I mean, if Hawkinson's gonna be 1/3 of the ownership and he's 1,100 cheaper and it's the easier matchup, like I think I'd rather just get to this guy. So
yeah, it's a good point.
All right, so if you had to play one stack this week, as gross as it sounds, and you said it makes you sick. It makes you sick too. The guy who's cheaper than Jake Browning, Zach Wilson. I really like Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson this week. And as I talked about this last week because we brought up how to stack guys. Mm-hmm. You can definitely stack running back if they catch passes. Breece Hall catches passes.
Yep.
We mentioned how our friend Mike C, he got 3rd in the main DFS contest a few years ago, stacking Carson Wentz with Miles Sanders and Alshon Jeffrey. So like most people stack their quarterback with 2 receivers or receiver tight end, but like fewer people do it with running back and receiver. And I think that's a really good way to go about it. So yeah, I like Hall Wilson. So give me Zach Wilson at 5,200. It's a super cheap stack. And it allows you to do anything else with your lineup. Like you could play like 3 other studs. So that's what I'm doing. If you were playing one lineup, what stack would you go with?
If I was only playing one lineup, it's a great question. I think my stack is, even with the ownership, I think my stack is going to be the expensive one. It's Mahomes, Kelsey. I think that's my stack, and I'm going to have to go cheap elsewhere.
Okay. Well, as we said before, there are a lot of ways to go cheaper about it. Would you put like another receiver with that, or would you just go skinny stack with just Kelsey?
Yeah, I would just go with Kelsey.
Okay. Any run back? Would you run back with Jefferson or?
Yeah, if I can afford it, I want to run back with Jefferson. That's the ideal.
Okay. I wonder what that looks like. So you put Kelsey there, and I just want to see pricing wise. So you have 4,800 per player, so you'd have to put like Wan'Dale Robinson there. So let's just do that. 3K. So now you have 5,200 per player, which probably means you have to go cheaper at receiver again, right? So
right. So
let's go with,
I mean, Michael Wilson is the guy at 3,700.
Okay, so we have Michael Wilson here at 3,700. Now you have 5,700 per player. So let me put my guy in, Breece Hall. You like him too. So we have 6K per player. You said Swift, right?
I could do DeAndre Swift or Jaleel McLaughlin at 5,000 if he plays. It would be an option.
Let's go McLaughlin, and then so you have 7K for your Superflex, which means look at the top quarterback who's available for 7K, and it's your guy, CJ Stroud. Boom. Now you're not putting him with anyone. Maybe you want to kind of change that around.
Right. Could you manipulate that around to get Tank Dell in there? Would be the ideal.
Right. I just with the salary limitations, I'm not sure that's possible because Tank Dell's 4,800. These receivers are 3K and 3.7K. So what about Robert Woods? What's he? He's not that you want to play. He's only 4K. So if you can somehow do it that way, I don't know. Like it's pretty restricted. Like that's the problem with playing Mahomes, Jefferson, and Kelsey. Like you're so limited what you can do elsewhere. So like maybe you just don't go Stroud, and maybe you go. There's another guy that we mentioned. You like Stafford too, 6,300. So try to get someone else. Now you have more possibilities. So so something like that. It seems like a pretty good lineup to me. So, all right. Anything else before we open up some packs?
No, that's it, man.
All right, cool. So, let's do it. Do you want to go first, or should I go first?
Yeah, I can go.
Okay.
Let me share my screen with the folks.
All right. While you do that, we had 3 comments or questions. We had Pate saying start Michael Wilson or Marquise Brown. I have both. So it sounds like you think Michael Wilson. I would go Marquise Brown, especially if it's PPR. If it's standard, I think you can make the case for Michael Wilson. But I think Brown catches more passes than Wilson at this point.
I would go Wilson just because I like him as a player more, but I don't think someone's crazy for going with Brown.
Okay. This is a guy we didn't talk about, by the way. Lion King asking start Jameson Williams, who's coming off suspension this week rather than 2 weeks later. So Jameson Williams versus Panthers or Michael Thomas versus Patriots. I would go Michael Thomas because first of all, we don't know what condition Jameson Williams is in.
Right.
Second, Carolina has a run funnel defense. Their pass defense is actually not bad. It's the run defense that's terrible. The Patriots have so many injuries at corner that they're going to have trouble defending. The problem is like Derek Carr is not 100%, but like Michael Thomas is not like a speed burner downfield. Like that's more Olave. So like Thomas can catch some stuff underneath. I would go Thomas, but like it wouldn't surprise me at all if Jameson Williams is off too. So like I would go Thomas. What do you think?
I think it would depend on what I needed in my lineup. If I want to be more safe, I think Michael Thomas is clearly a safer option who's still going to get you some fantasy points, particularly in PPR. If you're in PPR and looking for safety, I think Thomas is the easy play. If you're in standard looking for safety, Thomas by a slight edge. But if you're looking for the boom play, I think Jameson Williams is, he could be the most talented, player on that team. I'm on St. Brown. I know everyone loves, but I think Williams could be more talented than him. And maybe he comes out with a vengeance game 1, and the Lions want to get him involved early. I think that's so. If you feel like you want a more boom opportunity, I think Williams is the guy.
Yeah, that makes more sense to me. It's a good point about what you need out of your lineup. To kind of dictate what you do. Sammy B asking pick 2: Christian Kirk, Tyler Boyd, Tank Dell, and then tight end Waller or Musgrave. So I see, yeah, pick 2 out of those receivers. I would go if Zay Jones is out. I would definitely go Kirk and Dell. If Zay Jones is in, I think I would go Boyd and Dell. It would still be close to Kirk and Boyd. The problem is with Zay Jones and Kirk is that like Kirk is not going to be on the field as much with Zay Jones there because he doesn't play 2 receiver sets with Zay Jones. So that's something to watch out for on the injury report. But yeah, if Zay Jones out, it's absolutely Kirk and Dell, like no question. And then tight end Waller or Musgrave.
Yes.
I think I would go Musgrave just because the Giants just seem so dysfunctional right now. What do you think?
I think it's Kirk and Dell, no matter what. I'm not touching the Bengals. I don't want to touch. I don't. Yeah,
that's fair enough.
And Waller and Musgrave, I think I would give Musgrave looks really good. You know, they've not got him involved in the offense as much as they should, but he looks to be a really good player long term. And I think I'd rather just take him on upside that maybe they figure him out. Waller, well, I don't know what's going on with that team. That team is a disaster, and I love it.
Well, I think things are going to be better when Andrew Thomas returns, but it sounds like he's going to be out this week, so that's not going to be good for Waller. With Musgrave, he had a concussion earlier in that Thursday night game against the Lions, which really hurt me because I had Dave Montgomery as a captain in that showdown lineup, and like I barely cashed, and like I was talking to someone who also plays DFS a lot, and I was like, yeah, I had Montgomery too. And then I named like all the other guys who went off. And he's like, wait, you barely cashed. What happened? And like, it's because like I had like Musgrave over Romeo Doubs and so like, it's just like, I didn't have Doubs and I had Musgrave instead. So it's like, yeah, so disappointing. Last question. We have Hollywood or D Hop. So we didn't talk about the DeAndre Hopkins at all. He's kind of not been 100%.
Yeah.
But it's the Colts are more pass funnel, so and plus he's gonna be healthier this week, so it's very close. I think I'll go Brown over Hopkins at this point because I just don't like Tannehill at all. But it's close. What do you think?
Yeah, he's really bad. At what point do they give up on that guy? Is the question you have.
What's their alternative though? They don't have anything. They drafted Will Levis and he's injured.
Yeah, it's true. I think I would go Hollywood Brown. If those are my options.
Okay. All right, let's go to your thing here. So you have a Rush Primetime Monday pack. I have one for Sunday. So the Monday is Raiders Packers. So the big prize here is Devontae Adams. You could say Jacoby Myers, Aaron Jones, Romeo
Josh
Doubs.
Jacobs.
Yeah, Josh Jacobs, obviously. Yeah. Romeo Doubs has played well recently. So those are some guys you could open up. So
all right, here we go.
Let's go legendary card. Here we go.
Rare. All right. That's all right. We'll see. All right. Defense is excellent. Luke Van Ness.
You always need defense in those
deep rosters, especially.
Yep.
He's AJ Dillon. That's terrible. Okay. DeAndre Carter. That's terrible. So
that's like the worst to have. Like I'd rather much rather have defense or kicker because like you can at least use them in deep roster. Like DeAndre Carter, you can't use at all. But like again, you can always craft them and get stuff out of that way. So if your rare card is great, like that makes up for everything. So
that's right. So I spent $40 on this pack, $39.99. Let's see if I see what I turned it into here.
So far, it's like $1. Yeah, nice.
Christian Watson rare card. Okay, it's not terrible.
That's pretty good. I mean, he's gonna be healthy now.
So, Yeah, all right. That's my pack for the week.
How much is Christian Watson going for? Let's
Oh,
see.
how do I
I'll find it. I'm already on. I'm already on here. Let me see.
You're already on there.
Christian Watson rares are going for $14.
Excellent.
So you turn 40 into 14, but it's not really 40 into 14 because you can use Christian Watson to make money in the contest. So
Right.
you got to look at it that way.
Yeah.
So let me get to mine.
I love it. It's not as bad as my previous trips to casinos in my life. So turned a lot more into a lot less in my life.
Yeah, those can go really bad. So I spent $60 on this pack. The reason why this is more expensive is because there are two really good legendaries here. As you can see here, let's look real fast. If that's still the case, because and most of these packs have been open. There's 720 packs left. There's still Kittle legendary. There's still CD Lamb legendary. The CD Lamb legendary is going for last sale was $1,700. This last Kittle sale was for $855. So there's a lot of money to be paid in these packs, but as again, the $60 could easily be $6. So let's open it. Let's see. So can hit open here and let's go.
Let's go. Kittle legendary card.
Rare. Elite. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take it. Unless it's like backup running back. So with Tony Pollard, okay, that's a good core card to have for sure.
Yeah. Good core card. You can sell it for $10 if you needed to.
Yeah, it's a rough matchup, but still, it's not. You can play for the rest of the season. Debo.
All right.
This is at this rate, this is gonna be a terrible elite card. I can tell.
Yeah.
Like,
Debo is a decent card. $12 to $15 on resale.
Michael Gallup.
About $1.36 resale.
Not as exciting. So, all right, elite cards. So, who's most likely to get? Unfortunately, Jordan Mason. See, this is terrible. Like, but Trayvon Diggs is actually like that's a good. It's not a bad card because elite defense you could use in those deep rosters.
That's right. Christian McCaffrey though, you got some options there.
Yeah, Jake Ferguson. You need tight ends in those deep rosters too. You have Kittle. You have another defense here. Brandon Cooks, Prescott. So like basically anyone but Jordan Mason, please. But I'm most likely to get him, and I think it's probably going to be him. So let's see.
Let's see. Come on, McCaffrey.
No Jordan Mason. Come on, Trayvon Diggs. Okay, all right.
Okay, that's fine.
Again, not too bad. Dallas defense again. It's a good defense to have. And I could definitely use that in the deep roster for sure. So not bad. This will tell me here what it's going for. The last sale was $55. So I spent 60, you got 55 back plus those cores. So actually, it's rare to make money on these packs. So I actually did it. So maybe we should quit while I'm ahead, I guess.
At the end of the day, it's like you just said. It's like you're purchasing opportunities to get in the contest.
Sure. Yeah. And this is a fine lineup to have in the contest too. You're probably going to cash in the core contest. There's not much competition there. But yeah, definitely going to be looking to play this in an elite deep roster contest.
So, it's always interesting to me which packs go for more or less. I'm always a little bit surprised when I see we were talking about this like certain packs that are selling for stupid amount of money and some that are stayed at or below their original drop price. But
sometimes it's weird, sometimes it's very unexpected. But the site streamnft.com, they show you the contents of what's left in each pack, and the fact that like there's a Lamb legendary and a Kittle legendary, and there are 719 packs open, and overall there are 7 legendary cards left. Actually, wait, there's 7 legendary cards left. So 7 out of 719. It's like about 1 in 100. It's like not terrible odds that you're going to get something really good. Obviously, like you don't want Michael Gallup, but you have Dallas defense, 49ers defense, Lamb, Cooks is okay. Then you have Dallas defense again. You have Kittle. Like 6 out of those 7 are really good, and 2 are phenomenal with Kittle and Lamb.
Yeah.
So
How many packs have already been opened versus what's left? What was the total number? I don't really see that there.
Open packs are 2271, unopened packs 719, and it
Got
says
it.
24% of the pack of the cards are left.
Got it.
So
I'll wait till a few more have been opened before I get one.
that's actually a good strategy. I think a lot of people, not I wouldn't say a lot of people, but there are some. I'm sure there are some sharks out there who just like sitting on this and waiting for like the odds to be in their favor, and for it to make sense to buy. We actually showed you an example of this after the call last week, after the show last week, where like a guy spent $5,000 on 2 packs just because he knew there was something really good in them, and he got like an Anthony Richardson legendary card, which like pretty much paid off. It like he actually lost a little bit of money on those 2 packs, but like Richardson legendary is going to make him a lot more money
Right.
in the contest. So like he's going to be up in the long term.
Right.
Yeah. So anything else you want to talk about your site for a second?
No new content, but anyone's interested, thecapIsFake.com. I have worked on a couple pieces of content, but haven't had a chance to post them there. So, but there's about 10. There's about 20 articles. Anyone's interested.
Anything exciting that you're going to post?
I've been doing a lot of research on fantasy football stuff, mostly actually. So I've been looking at running backs. I've looked at running backs outperforming their ADP, and most running backs taken in the first round of the NFL draft are overdrafted in fantasy drafts. In essence, that's generally the track record, as are wide receivers. But running backs and receivers taken in the 3rd to 5th rounds of the NFL draft are typically undrafted in fantasy drafts, and a lot of them end up outperforming their draft, their draft position. So when you're dumpster diving for rookie players in redraft leagues, 3rd to 5th round players are almost always a way better value and buy than 1st or 2nd rounders, which I guess is kind of intuitive when you think about it.
Yeah, I'd like to see the breakdown of the first round running backs in the first half of the round and the second half of the round, because like off the top of my head, like running backs 1 to 16 over the years, we had Bijan this year, you had Saquon Barkley, who he got hurt, but still you have Christian McCaffrey, you had Ezekiel Elliott, who was great for a while, Todd Gurley, who was amazing until he kind of wore down. But then like in the back half of the first round, you had your like Sony Michel's, you've had your
David Brown,
right? Yeah, you had your Lawrence Maroney, you've had a bunch of other guys like who really struggled. So and also receiver like 17 to 32, and outside of Justin Jefferson, I can't really name receiver drafted 17 to 32 who did well his first year. Like Zay Flowers is kind of maybe bucking that trend too, but like overall, like those guys have struggled. Whereas like 1 to 16, you've had like Julio Jones, AJ Green, like those guys have been monsters. Like so, I think there's I think you should break down 1 to 16 and 17 to 32. But
I've gone back to 2002. The only rookie running back to outperform his draft position, average draft position, so far is Adrian Peterson.
Okay.
And so Zeke Elliott did, depending on what draft position you use, because he was the 4th running back coming off the board his rookie year, which I forgot he was going that high. It was really surprising to me. And so he finished as a top 5 running back that year, though. So he didn't outperform his draft, but he was kind of right at it. Adrian Peterson was going in the 6th round of redraft leagues in 2007, and he finished as the 3rd best running back in most formats that year. So that's obviously being drafted in the 6th or 7th round. He's returning 1st round value. That's excellent.
Yeah. I think Peterson was like kind of the start of that trend where like people were like, oh wait, these rookie running backs could be really good. And so maybe it's like Adrian Peterson's fault that these guys are all overdrafted.
Yeah. If you go back a couple spot, a couple years later, you have Edgerrin James, but he's not in my study. But maybe I'll back it up. So, doing some of that. I've also been looking at cornerbacks following receivers. I think a lot of times in fantasy we say things like, "Hey, this receiver is going up against this cornerback, so I don't want to play him." But in the NFL, just so few cornerbacks actually travel with receivers; they just stay on one side. And so if a receiver stays on one side, then he's going to go up against that cornerback a lot. But most teams move their receivers around so much that you don't have to worry about that as much anymore. So I think it's less of a concern as it once was in yesteryear. In the past, where cornerbacks really would stick on a particular player. Now they stick on a side.
Yeah, it's like it's a flash from the past. Like when you said that, I'm like, man, I haven't thought about that in a while. And I used to do that all the time. I used to be like, man, I don't want to play this receiver against this corner, and now I'm just looking at the overall pass defense.
Right.
So that's kind of strange that that's changed, but that's a pretty cool thing to talk about. So. Yeah, definitely gonna be looking forward to those articles. Please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit the link in the description for the merch store. All that would mean a lot. I'll be back Saturday night to talk about my Saturday notes for the week 5 picks. I hope everyone does well. If you don't tune in, hope you do well with your bets and your fantasy lineups and everything else. But yeah, Kenny, always great to be with you on this show. It's usually Wednesday, but I actually like this Thursday format better. I feel like we have a better kind of understanding what's going to happen, whereas like Wednesday is still trying to figure things
A little
out.
closer,
So,
yeah.
yeah. So, thanks again, everyone, for listening and commenting, and I will talk to you later.
You the man, Walt.